Hello everyone, my name is Fraser Waldron, and in this video, I want to talk to you about two concepts from Stoicism that I use on a daily basis to make my life better and to handle difficult scenarios. One is that you don't control outcomes, and the second one is that you can reframe any situation to be good or bad. It's just your perception of it that makes it so, and so because of that, you can just reframe things to be more useful, not necessarily your first interpretation of an event. So those are the two things I want to talk about today. They actually form sort of like some of the core pillars of my Wheel of Misfortune personal philosophy. And again, that's to get through the day in a more effective manner, as well as to handle difficult scenarios as they arise. So I think this is useful for me, and I'm hoping it will be useful for you. So the first piece, controlling outcomes. This is a core Stoic philosophical principle, but you'll find it in other philosophies too, like Buddhism, for example, where the outcome is out of your control. You can influence things and have input on things, but essentially, fundamentally, that you don't control outcomes, at least not in the way that most people perceive them to be. There's several reasons for this articulated. Obviously, there's maybe gaps in this, but it's more about being operational in the day-to-day. It's not super high-level metaphysics, let's say. It's just, how do I get through the day, and is this framework useful? And so I would articulate this position by roughly saying that it's at least arguably true that you don't control outcomes. Like you could articulate this as, one, you don't have perfect information. So as you maneuver through space, you're interacting with the world, but in an imperfect way. You've got senses coming in phenomenologically, let's say, but if you can be deceived, for example, by a magician, maybe the outcomes are not one for one in every situation. And then if you extrapolate out like the big meta level, let's say, you could say, well, do you control the outcome of the stars? Like, if you think about it, does like the sun change its course around the universe, or does the moon, can you manipulate the moon in certain ways, etc.? And the answer is usually no, hopefully. And then also you can bring it down at like the more personal level, like, do you control the government in which you live under? Do you control the political process? Do you control your friends and family, your mother-in-law? Like, do you control your uncle who's a bit crazy? Like you can influence those people, but do you have control of outcomes on them? Probably not. And then you can even look at yourself, like, do you control outcomes in your own body? Like, do you control the cells individually replicating? If you get cancer or like a sickness, do you control that outcome? Like, can you control your body to not do that? I don't know. And then you can even get into the weeds about it. Like, do you control the thoughts before you have consciousness of them? Like, are you generating the thoughts? Who's thinking the thought? And again, we're getting into the weeds here, but the general operating assumption is that you don't control outcomes. And this is useful because if you don't control outcomes, it like takes the weight off your shoulders, and you can just go, I'm interested, and this is the key philosophical thing, I'm just interested in outcomes. So I'll give you an example where this is useful. You go into a job interview, you really want the job, so you have a high expectation. You don't get the job, and then you feel sad because your expectation and reality haven't met well, and that creates unnecessary suffering. Because if you had the assumption that you don't control outcomes, then when you went into that interview, you could infer that you want it. You go, I really hope this interview goes well. And instead of saying, I hope I get it, like I need this job, you could just say, I'm excited to see what happens. So I've found that when I suffer unnecessarily, it's often because I have an expectation of how something should go, consciously or unconsciously, and then it really hits me in a weird way. So if I have like, I really want to start this business and have success, and like I'm going to be so successful, I have this kind of idea, and then I don't get it, it just kind of crushes me uniquely. So if I had the frame though, if I go, you know what, this is going to be a bad scenario, I'm just, who knows what's going to happen, I'm just going to be excited to see what occurs, then I often don't have as strong of a negative reaction to that environment because I know that I don't control perfect outcomes. I'm not God. I don't have perfect influence on people. I don't have perfect information. All I can control is my input, and then wherever the output lands, that's good. There's also a second element or another element rather, where you don't know if something is good or bad for you until the final decision anyways, right? So if for example, I say, hey, like, do you want McDonald's across the street, like for lunch, or do you want to just like stay at home and eat the food? Like at a certain point you could say, well, like, I want to go to McDonald's, but maybe because you walk across the street, you get hit by a bus. So like, was that outcome in your control? And was going to McDonald's like the right decision? Like, who knows, right? Like it's kind of like it's arbitrary. So because you don't have perfect information and because you're maneuvering in space it's nice to take the load off and just go, hey, listen, I'm just excited for whatever happens here. And imagine a job scenario. I don't get the job. Oh, like, or I do. Oh, wow. Like, I wasn't really too sure, but I really do want that. So perfect. Like, this is better than I thought. So that's outcomes. The second piece is, because we don't control outcomes, that means that we can reframe everything to be good or bad. So whatever happens in the actual outcome is neither good nor bad, but we can make it good or bad or meaningful based on the scenario. So the classic example that I use is, imagine your house burns down and you love that house. You bought it, like you raised your family in it, like you've got a long history in this house. The house burns down, no one dies, but you have to watch your house burning down. Across the street is your like mortal enemy of the neighborhood, and they're like super happy that the house is burning down. So the house burning down, is it good or bad? Like, does the universe have a moral opinion on that? Now, it's possible. If you have a epistemological framework that God makes things good or bad, then you could say, well, it's bad because, like property damage, God doesn't like, and burning is not good because God perceived it that way. Fine, that's a different theological frame. But if you're of the position where maybe a little bit more existential, where you get to decide if things are good or bad, you have flexibility here. And because like when the house is burning down and your mortal enemy is super happy and you're super sad, like the difference between you, the delta between you viewing the same event is huge. So like, why is that? And then essentially, well, it's because people have different perceptions of things, but it's essentially the narrative you've attached to the house. The house is just an inanimate object. Like if my house burnt down, I'd be like, that's okay. Like, too bad. I've got all my pictures on the cloud, so I'm good. Like everything is fine, right? And I just be like, this is an inconvenience. Where maybe someone else is like, oh my God, like it has so much value to me, right? Neither is right, neither is wrong per se. It's just your perception of the matter. It's like when you talk about people and they're like, oh, I heard there's a big war going on, and people are like, I can't even engage with this. Like there's a war going on, or strikes between America, Israel, and Iran right now, or whatever. Fine. And in that, I was on a group chat with a bunch of venture capitalist people, and one of the people posted like a news article, very vanilla on that topic, just like an update of the news. And someone was like, oh my gosh, like it's so intense, it's so bad, like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like my perception of that news article didn't create this strong negative emotion. Now, there's lots of reasons for that, but essentially what you can do is you can reframe it. So even if you had a strong negative emotion to like seeing that news article updating the group, essentially, you could say, oh, this is a good opportunity. I'm emotional for whatever reason because I hate war. Cool. Well, that's just the way the world is. Again, you don't control outcomes, right? People fight people all the time. It's humans being humans. That's useful because it takes the stress off. Wars always happen. Like it's not the end of the world per se, because these things happen on a regular basis since the dawn of time. So it's like, you don't control outcomes. Let's reframe it. So instead of going like, oh, this is, I'm so emotional about this, it's so negative. Like, oh, you could say, oh, I'm really emotional. Let's reframe. Oh, I'm not the best when I see this content. Maybe I should, use this as an opportunity to engage with the content because I've seen it anyways, and process it to be more effective. And that way I'm not as emotionally, messed up by seeing that content in the future. So that's an example where like, you just endlessly reframe to make it meaningful. And that's a nice skill. And this is kind of like my superpower. Regardless of what happens to me, I just endlessly reframe. So if I like lose my job, for example, I get laid off, which happened to me a couple months ago, actually. At first I was just like, oh yeah, that's great, because this is an opportunity to work on like my YouTube videos or other things. I was like, this is fantastic. And it took me like 2 seconds to reframe that, right? Other scenarios, like when I was at in law enforcement, for example, I'd go to like really negative scenes, like brutal scenes. And I have it's a 2-part thing, because I have this compassion like narrative, a cue, where I go, I'm gonna do the right thing. But when I do that cue, when I go to like a homicide or like a sexual assault survivor, I'm engaging with someone who's been really victimized, I'm like, this is negative. I can feel the negative vibes, but I just go reframe, essentially through that cue. And the reframe is just to make it meaningful for me or for them, or I'm gonna make the situation good. I'm gonna orientate higher. I'm just gonna reframe the scenario. So I'm like, man, I feel really sad about this. Hey, it's a good opportunity to practice like your stoic discipline, to do the right thing, to make it meaningful. And I just endlessly reframe things over and over and over again. And it could be other things too. Like I hurt my back, had to get 2 back surgeries. And this was traumatizing for me. Like I had an idea, a narrative in my brain that, like I had to be able-bodied, let's say, and I was not able-bodied for like 6 months. And even now, like I still can't do certain things. So one could articulate that I'm a bit disabled in some ways. And when I was in that, I had this strong narrative of, I'm a able-bodied person and like fit and I can do things. And then I just had to reframe that. So one of the big reframing mechanisms I used was to just go, you know what, like this is an opportunity to practice mental athletics. You know what I'm saying? So like instead of being physically able, I'm going to really up my mental ability, and that's going to be useful, and I'm going to share that with people, right? And so this is why I'm into the philosophical stuff now. So I don't control outcomes. It's a perfect example. I don't control outcomes. I hurt my back. That's unexpected. Just like wear and tear and lifting too much heavy weights and wrestling with people as a police officer. Just like back blows out. Surgery goes terribly. Outcome out of my control. So then I perceive that as super negative, but I can always choose to reframe things to be meaningful. So instead of going like, oh my God, my back's ruined, the surgery went bad, and I'm like, my narrative was like, I'm a piece of shit because I'm not physically able anymore, although that's not true, of course. I just reframed it to be like, this is a great opportunity to increase my mental fortitude, let's say, or my mental capability to deal with this scenario, and that's going to upgrade me. And so then it became meaningful to be injured because I was able to reframe it to be useful and meaningful for me. So when I look back, was my back injury good or bad? I don't know. To me, it was actually good because I'm the person I am now, which is like my mental citadel, the Stoic citadel, like my mental vault is like intense. And so I can deal with bad things consistently and robustly comparatively to other people. And that's not even my skill. It's just like I was forced to create mental models to deal with difficult things. And now I've been practicing so much and I'm good at it. And I get to share that with you, which I'm really happy about. But so if you look back, it's like that outcome was out of my control. I didn't want that. But if I look back and I go, wow, I'm actually pretty excited to see if that happens again. So if I hurt my back again today, knowing what I know now, I'd be like, oh, I hurt my back. Isn't that interesting? Wow. And then I go, how can I make this useful? And I don't know exactly what I think, but I rip through multiple versions until I find the right version. And you see people do this all the time, right? Because everyone has sort of like a story of their life. Well, I did this and I didn't do that because of this. And you can essentially recreate that narrative and make it more meaningful for you. But the key part there for me is that I don't control outcomes. And then when things happen to me, I'm just curious to see how I can make them meaningful later on. I just reframe endlessly until I have a narrative that is satisfying with me. And I don't necessarily need to hold that for very long too. I can, over time reframe endlessly. It doesn't really matter what the reframe is, as long as it makes me, I can move through the day more effectively and it's meaningful or useful for me. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not like locked in stone. Your story isn't locked. And this is true for everyone. And you see this all the time, right? Like if there's inspiring stories of someone who's like had a terrible injury, but they come back and like, damn, like that's cool. Like they run marathons with no legs, or like they climbed a mountain with like no arms, or whatever the intense situation is. And I think that's because they're able to reframe. And you will do that naturally. I think it's just the human body will do that. But if you do that mechanically, like if you cue it all the time, especially if you've got strong emotional feelings, oh, I see myself, I'm having a strong negative emotional reaction. How can I reframe this scenario to be meaningful? You'll always find a way to do it, because every scenario you can at least suffer well as a baseline, at the absolute baseline. So if you do find yourself in the worst case scenario, you go, what a great opportunity to suffer well. And that's not nothing. If you're in the hospital and you're like sick, you can be the good person at the hospital who cracks the jokes with the nurses. You can be the good person at the funeral who like handles it super well. So even if you're in the worst case scenario, you can always revert back or reframe to something meaningful like that. And you can always choose to suffer well no matter what, which gives your life worth meaning. And that's not nothing, right? So I feel strongly about that. But yeah, for your day-to-day, everything can be meaningful. You're at the grocery store and it's like there's a long line. Cool. Like how can I reframe this to be useful? I'm going to practice my patience. I'm going to crack a joke with the lady who's the guy or the girl who's like packing the bags, right, or whatever. And I'm just going to be like super fun. And I'm going to make this useful. Like it's going to be practice. I'm gonna practice being a good person in this scenario. Can I be like the most stoic here? Can I practice my Christianity if I'm Christian? Can I be a good Muslim if I'm Muslim? Like whatever the context is, everything is reframable. I've never had a scenario where I haven't been able to, especially with that baseline being, you can always choose to suffer well. So that's it. I hope that's useful. Am I crazy? Have I hit something here? For me, it works really nicely, but I'd love to get your guys' critique on it. I'm sure it's not perfect, and I'd love to hear more about if you think this is useful or anything I should add to my book on this specific topic. So that's it. Hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next video.